Good morning, everyone. A warm welcome here in Stellenbosch. Before I start, from all the organizers and everyone involved, I would like to wish you all a prosperous new year. And I hope that it is actually something that you look forward to. Given that we start the year this way, I imagine that it's a very good way to start the year. So we have a very exciting program that we're looking forward to in the next 2 weeks. I am myself actually a bit like a child, looking forward to many of the lectures and wish I can, and look forward to make a bit of notes and learn. This year is also very exciting. I think it is the first, or not I think it is, the first machine learning summer school on the African continent. And then if the data is correct, it is also the 35th MLSS that we have this year. And it is 17 years since the first MLSS was held in 2002. A bit of history, I looked through my email box last night, and in 2010, we actually tried to have MLSS here in Stellenbosch, and things didn't work out that way. But I guess that's the good thing about delayed gratification. So it's definitely happening now, and I'm looking forward to it. Apart from that, it is a learning opportunity, which I think is the main reason for this. It is also an excellent network opportunity. And I encourage you that if you know someone next to you, don't spend time with him or her. Just meet someone else. Make notes, exchange numbers, and make sure, since there's a good chance that your neighbor could be one of the leaders of machine learning in the future. And then, of course, we have the leaders of machine learning here in the hall as well. For an event like this, one must say thank you. And there's many people to thank. Firstly, of course, many thanks to all of you who are sitting here, since, without any of you willing to attend it, there would have been no MLSS. Then there's also all the speakers I would like to thank, and we will thank them continuously. They've traveled from all over the world, and they have all busy schedules. And to make time, especially at the beginning of this year, it's much appreciated, and thanks very much. Then we have some sponsors, and we are grateful to all of them for their contribution. I am going to read, you can read them. So it's Perlexis, Capitec, Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, SAP, and Uber. That's our sponsors, and thank you to everyone. I would like to thank, in particular, the Capitec sponsorship, and the reason why is when we started the idea of MLSS, holding it here, and there was not a single sponsor, not a single cent, not a single person involved. They said, only on the idea, we will make sure this happens, we will underwrite this thing, and that gave us the confidence to actually start and getting this event here. Yes, I've mentioned all the sponsors, so many thanks to all of them. I think at this point, we're so quiet. I think we should give us a hand of applause to all the people that I've just thanked. Then there are also the organizers of the event, and we must thank them. And there's in particular 3 people which I would like to thank. It's Lizette, where is she? Emily Marie, and Ben. Ben, can you? Yeah, the 3 of them, they spent a lot of time, and especially the last month in the crunch time, there was a lot of work involved to get this going. So many thanks to them again. That is what I wanted to say. before I hand over to Gerry, I just want to say one more thing, and that is, I think there should be one rule for this week. I don't like to make rules, but there should be one. We should try to be on time. It's a very, very full program. There's a lot happening. And if we start 10 minutes later, then 10 minutes become 20 minutes the next round, and it becomes 40 minutes or whatever later onwards, and that is not, that's unpleasant. So as a courtesy to your fellow participant, your neighbor, let's try to be always on time for these things. So can I say the official welcome is now being, I will hand over to Gerry Fourie, and he is the Chief Executive Officer of Capitec Bank. Now, South Africans of course know who Capitec Bank is, but for those of you who don't know, come from elsewhere in the world, there's many things that we can say about them, but this morning I thought that if you read news and the internet, then by many metrics, they are considered to be one of the best banks in the world. They rank top, not just in South Africa, but worldwide. And that says something about them. And they're also very known for their innovation and their innovative way that they do things, and hence also their sponsorship to this event. So, over to you.
Thanks, McElroy. Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe just to give you some perspective, McElroy asked me about 2-3 months ago, will I come talk to these people? I thought it's these people working for him, so I said yes. That's about 20-30 people. I don't thought I'm talking to 270, 280 people, so that's the first mistake, and I still say he owes me. The second one is I didn't realize I had to speak this morning. I came back from leave last night, 8 o'clock, so my mind and body is still on holiday mood, not on working mode, but that will change quite quickly. It's a great privilege for us as Capitec to be involved here, to be part of the sponsorship, because we believe it's very important for the future, not only of the bank itself, but for South Africa, Africa, and the whole world, that we can work together to optimize the needs of the client. Maybe just a bit of perspective on Capitec, because I think it's important to understand it. The people that don't know Capitec, I'm not going to talk a lot about it. But we've got we started in 2000. I was quite surprised when I got the email to see that you guys are also 17 years old, or we're 18 years old. There was basically 4 traditional banks in South Africa dominating the banking industry. Nobody gave us a chance that we can change it, and we can be dominant in that particular space. So we started in 2000 with a clear plan to become a retail bank, focusing on the retail side. Today we've got 11 million clients. We're still growing with about 150,000 clients per month. October was 190,000 clients that we've grown in 1 month. On client numbers, we're the biggest now in South Africa. If we look at banking clients, that's clients that actually deposit their salaries with ourselves. That's our most important aspect. We've got about 5 million. There we've got a market share of about 27%. So we're also the biggest in it. What is the lesson in that is, if you really focus, you can achieve quite a lot, and you can become dominant in a very small space. What is very interesting also is we've got about 6 million clients that is using a digital platform to do transactions. And about 90% of our transactions is performed on a self-help device, and it's not performed in branch. Yet we've got close to 6.5 million clients that's still going into our branches every single day. How did we achieve it? I've already spoken about focused, and I'm not going to go in detail about our strategies and everything. I've spoken a lot about it, but I think the most important one is always client focus, so really understanding the needs of the client. You can't deliver if you don't understand the needs of the client. And from there, we always had 4 very straightforward fundamentals. Till today, the 4 fundamentals is affordability, accessibility, simplicity, and service. Till today, everything we do, we actually evaluate on that basis. But if you look through our history, and I just thought through it and think through it, the one thing that we never give recognition to is our ability to use data. And how did we actually use data to actually be a market leader, especially in South Africa? I think if you look at every single transaction that has been performed in the bank in the last 18 years has been recorded. If you just to give you some perspective, in December, I haven't got the final figure, but we plan to to perform 1.3 billion transactions on our banking system for the month. So all that data we've got. And what do we do with that data? We optimize the client value for the client. We also only do unsecured lending. So we're not doing like a traditional banks in secured lending. And the moment you go into unsecured lending, you are very exposed to what's happening politically. You're very exposed to what's happening in the economy. You're very exposed to what's happening if there's strikes, etc., etc. And then you really need to understand your client and what is happening with the client. Just to give you an indication, we've got about 15 credit models that we're running. We can adjust those credit models on a daily, weekly basis if need be. But we differentiate on a client. If you look at mining, we can differentiate on top of mine, gold, platinum, etc., etc. We can go per company. We even go per shaft. We've got our policies that is applying on that particular level. We can actually differentiate. We're sitting now with Implats that's retrenching 13,000 people, and there we have determined what shafts, what is happening where, and we can actually adjust according to. I think if I look at data, what we start doing with Prelexis is to automate bank statements, where you can actually use the bank statements. You identify your debit orders with machine learning beforehand. So what is happening in the past to do affordability assessment on a client, that will take about 10 minutes. Now it's taking seconds because the machine is actually doing it, the computer is doing it. But the beauty of that is our consultants now can actually connect with the client. They can talk to the client. They can do what they're really employed for, and that is actually to create the brand. Because the most important way of actually marketing Capitec, I believe, is word of mouth. Is that insight that you give the client, and we believe that's a very powerful tool going forward. So it's that inside understanding the client. I think the second one is knowing your business. We always say to our branches and every single person that works in the bank, you need to be the CEO of your bank. So you need to take ownership. Whenever I go into a branch, I will say, how's it going with your business? We give them information every morning, 7 o'clock. Every single stat that's happened yesterday per consultant, what has worked, what hasn't worked. So a consultant can see how many debit orders have they converted, how many apps have they sold, what is the arrears per consultant, what was the sales per consultant. I receive every single morning, and the whole EXCO team, we're getting an SMS 7 o'clock, and we get all our sales figures. By 11 o'clock in the mornings, our people has analyzed all that information, and they could say to us if there was a deviation, what was right and what was wrong. So we're using data the whole time to actually optimize the business and drive the business. The third one is actually on, we said we need to be a low-cost banking. We believe there's two strategies in the world. The one is high volume, low margin, or low volumes, high margin. We are in the first one. So you need to do things on a low-cost basis. Now, to be able to do that, if a client, just to give you an indication, if a client is actually coming into a branch, we know exactly, because he takes a ticket, we've got a queuing system, we know immediately his need, we know he's actually in the branch. We know exactly from where he's sitting till he's actually being served, we understand how long that takes. Interesting, only 4% of our clients waits longer than 15 minutes over a month period before he's been served. That percentage came down to from 30% to 4%. If you take peak days, you can understand how impressive a figure of 4% is. Then once he's sitting in front of that screen, every single screen gets measured and has been designed. So if we're sitting in front of this particular screen, we know it should take 1 minute or 2 minutes or 3 minutes. And then we can understand if the consultant's actually spending more time or less time with that particular client. The more interesting thing is actually that in our branches, it takes you 10 minutes or 10 rand per minute. So if you can take out a minute, multiply by our 14,000 consultants, multiply by our number of consultants, you understand what you can actually really save. But it's all data, because you need to understand your costing works out at 10 rand per minute. Our call centers works at 5 rand per minute. So it's all these type of things that's taking place. I think the other more important one for us was we're predicting the volumes of our branches on per month, per week, per day, per 15-minute sprint. So what is the importance of that? Is if branch A is going to be busy between 12 and 1, and branch B is not busy, and they're very close by, we can actually move the consultants from branch B to A to go and help there. So you're optimizing your cost. So it comes back to using your data to actually create that low-cost banking. And just maybe for the people that don't know Capitec, on pricing, we're about 30 to 40% lower than the market. We've just launched a funeral policy, and the brief to Sanlam, who was our partner in that particular area, was in the beginning, we need to be 30% lower than the market, and they said to us, it's impossible. We managed to get in at 30% lower than the market, but you can only do it if you really understand what's happening. If I look at the future, a couple of 3 points that I would just want to highlight. I think if we really want to make a difference, the first one is we need to understand the needs of the client. If we don't understand the needs of the client, we won't be successful. It's companies that really understand that is going to be successful. And if you just look at the needs of the client, how it's changed in the last 10 years. Your iPhone, Apple is 10 years old. Just imagine what you've done in the last 10 years on the Apple, and just think about what you're going to do in the next 5 years on a phone or on some other device. If you look at South Africa, interesting stat on South Africa is there's 55 million people, but 20 million is below the age of 19. Those are young people that is growing up with a phone in their hand or some other electronic device that they can actually use. And they're going to need data. They're data hungry. So you need to understand the client's needs to be successful. I think the second one is we need to create value. Everything that you guys are doing here for the next 2 weeks, we need to ask, how do we actually create value? And I believe the biggest value we need to create in South Africa and also in Africa is financial literacy. If I look at the matric results that just came out in South Africa, quite scary is that if you look at the matrics or the people that started in 2007, their first year at school, only 17% of those people actually qualified to study at a university. Only 17%. And I think if you go into Africa, it's probably the same level. So we need to create financial literacy for people so that they really understand what is happening in the financial world. We need to create that insights that how to budget, if I do this, this happens. We need to be able to communicate with those people on a real-time basis. I think the third thing is you need to be agile. You need to be quick, you need to be fast. If I look at companies in the past, we've always worried about economic risk. Suddenly we've got social media risk, social communication risk, because everyone is tweeting anything, anytime, and you need to be able to react. We were under fire earlier last year where we had to react, and it's incredible what you can actually do with machine learning to actually understand the trends and the type of attacks, and it's just going to get worse, or there's going to be more and more and more. And I think then the other one is cyber. In the cyber world, we need to make certain that we actually use data correctly. And I think that also brings us to a point where all companies are looking for data. Everyone wants structured data and unstructured data. But the important thing is, what are you going to do with that data so that you create value for the client? Because otherwise, the client is going to say, you can't use my data, and then you're dead. So we all need to ask ourselves, how can we actually use that data and actually create value to the client? I think that is where, if we look at the future, where machine learning, artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, all of that is actually bringing everything together to actually have the ability to create value for the client, to be agile, to be much quicker, to satisfy those needs, because that is the challenge of going forward. If I look at South Africa specifically, we've got a big shortage. If you look at machine learning, artificial intelligence, we've got a big shortage in the skill levels of people with science, maths, etc., engineering, to actually create it. And that's why, for me, it's so great that we can actually partner with Prelexis, partner with international companies to actually say, how do we unlock this full potential. The one thing I've just seen in our 4 or 5 years journey with machine learning, because you can use machine learning, artificial intelligence in many areas. We all know what's happening with driverless cars. We all know what's happening in the medical world. But I'm talking purely financial. And the one thing I've seen in the last 2-3 years is actually wherever you think about something, you can actually use machine learning and artificial intelligence. But we've only got so many resources. So we need to prioritize, and we need to say to ourselves, where are we're going to use these resources so that we can actually create value to our clients. So The one thing is, whatever you guys are doing in these 2 weeks, ask, how are we going to use it? How are we going to create value? And then prioritize and say, let's do something great for the world and for Africa. The last point is, I read over the holiday season. I don't normally read because I read quite a lot during the year. The Economist 2019 prediction on Africa was there's currently 1.2 billion people in Africa. 2050, they predict 2.5 billion people in South Africa. It's quite scary that they're doubling. And what we need to ask ourselves as a team here, how do we unlock the full potential of not only South Africa, but Africa in totality? Because you're going to sit with 2.5 billion people that you must satisfy their needs to unlock the full potential. So that is my challenge to yourself in those 2 weeks. Think, how are we unlocking that full potential? And I think the other big challenge is, how do we make people financial literate? Because a big portion of people in Africa continent is not financial literate. Thank you very much.